I never thought I'd be the guy telling a story like this, but here I am. It all started when my wife, Lisa, and I decided to celebrate our 5-year anniversary with a trip to the coast. Just a quiet weekend away, we thought. Somewhere we could breathe, disconnect from our busy lives, and pretend for a second that everything was perfect. The ocean was roaring outside, and the room had that slightly salty smell mixed with candle wax and freshly laundered sheets. I remember feeling pretty good, like maybe we had a shot at being happy for a little while longer. But from the moment we arrived, there were little things that bugged me. Lisa was a little more guarded than usual, hiding her phone when I tried to peek at it. She brushed off my questions about her plans for the day, said she just wanted some me time. Every time I asked what she was doing, she'd give me a tight smile and change the subject. I shook it off, thinking maybe she was just tired or needed space. We'd been so busy lately, I told myself. Everyone's got a moment of weirdness, right? Things started to feel off the second night. I was half asleep when I noticed she kept nudging her phone under her pillow. I rolled over trying to ignore it, but curiosity got the better of me. I reached over and grabbed her phone without her noticing. My heart was pounding in my chest. I unlocked it, expecting maybe a missed call or a text from a work colleague, something innocent. Instead, I saw a string of messages from a number I didn't recognize, full of flirtatious emojis and suggestive comments. "Can't wait to see you again," one read. "Tonight's gonna be wild." My stomach sank. I hesitated, then slowly scrolled further. There were more messages, all of them clearly from someone she'd been texting behind my back. I felt my hands go cold and slick with sweat. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. This wasn't just a flirtation, it was something more. I read about 10 messages before I finally put the phone down and sat up, trying to steady my breathing. The room felt suddenly too small, too loud. My mind was racing. I whispered her name, voice tight. "Lisa, who the hell is this?" She shot upright in bed, eyes wide with that guilty look she always gets when she's caught. "Who is what?" She mumbled, voice trembling, but I already knew. I saw her hurriedly grab her phone, trying to hide it, her fingers trembling. I knew then that my wife, the woman I loved, had been lying to me, cheating on me right under my nose. During our anniversary trip, no less. That's when I felt the world shift beneath me. Everything I believed in, our vows, her faithfulness, the guy I thought I knew, was a lie. I stayed quiet for a long moment, just staring at her. My stomach was twisting, my palms sweaty and cold. I couldn't even speak. Instead, I just handed her phone back without a word. Lisa looked at me like I'd slapped her. "I can explain," she said, voice cracking. But I already knew I didn't want to hear it. Not then. Not anymore. That night, I lay awake listening to the waves crash outside, my mind replaying every detail. I wasn't the kind of guy to jump to revenge, but I knew I didn't want to let her get away with this. Not without a price. I needed to take control, figure out how deep this betrayal went, and plan my move. The next day, I started digging into her phone, her messages, her secret calls. I wanted to see how many other lies were hiding beneath her innocent smile. By the time the sun was setting, I had enough evidence to blow everything apart. The plan was forming, slow, calculated, cold. I didn't want her to see me coming. I just wanted her to feel what it was like to think she had control, only to realize she'd lost everything. And I was just getting started. The morning after I found those messages, I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. My stomach was in knots and my head was foggy, but I knew I couldn't just sit there and stew in it. I had to plan, had to get my ducks in a row. I spent hours going through her phone, copying everything I could find, screenshots of the messages, call logs, even her deleted files. I wanted proof, irrefutable, damning evidence. This wasn't just a gut feeling anymore. It was cold, hard facts. Lisa was still asleep when I finally finished. I looked at her lying there unaware and felt a strange mix of rage and disgust. I remember thinking, how could she? How could she betray me like this, right here, during what should have been our special time? My fists clenched the sheets so tight my knuckles went white. I needed to be smart about this. No shouting, no accusations just yet. Not until I'd figured out my next move. That afternoon, I decided to go for a walk along the beach. The salty air helped clear my head, but even the sound of the waves couldn't drown out the storm raging inside. I kept replaying her face as she lied to me, the way her eyes darted away when I asked about her plans, the guilty tremor in her voice. I knew I'd have to confront her, but I had to be careful. If I did it wrong, I'd lose everything, my dignity, her, maybe even the respect I still had for myself. Later that night, I sat her down in the dim glow of the room. I pulled out her phone and placed it on the bed between us. "I found these," I said, voice steady but cold. "Tell me what they mean." Her face went pale and her eyes darted again. She looked like she wanted to disappear into the wall. "I can explain," she whispered, voice trembling. "It's not what you think." "Oh, really?" I shot back. "Because it looks pretty damn clear to me. You're cheating on me during our anniversary trip. How do you explain that?" She looked like she was about to cry, but I didn't care. I was already over the shock. What I needed now was to make her understand that I wasn't going to be a punching bag for her lies anymore. I told her I knew everything about the calls, the texts, her secret meetings. She broke down then, sobbing and pleading, but I'd heard enough. I told her I needed some space, time to think, and I left her crying alone in that room. That night I stayed awake, plotting. I knew I couldn't just leave it at that. I wanted to hit her where it hurt most, and I knew her weak spot. She loved her phone. The constant connection, the hidden messages, the secrecy. If I could cut that off, even for a little while, she'd start to feel the loss. That's when the idea took root. An idea I hadn't fully committed to yet, but it felt right. I'd find a way to make her see what losing me really meant. The next morning, I took a deep breath, packed a bag, and told her I was going to stay at a friend's place for a few days. She begged me not to leave, but I was already focused on my plan. I left her with her phone and her tears, knowing I had everything I needed now: proof, a plan, a purpose. When I got to my buddy's place, I started working on my next step. I knew she'd try to contact me, try to fix things, but I wanted her to know she couldn't just undo what she'd done. Not that easily. I was already considering how to make her feel the sting of betrayal, how to turn this whole nightmare into a lesson she wouldn't forget. And I was just getting started. I spent the next couple of days turning my mind over my plan, sharpening it like a knife. I was the kind of guy to blow up her world overnight, but I wanted her to know I was serious. I needed her to feel the loss, to understand what she threw away. The first thing I did was set up a fake email account, an anonymous one, so I could keep tabs on her without her knowing. I figured she'd be dumb enough to try and contact her lover, thinking I'd be too blind to see. Sure enough, on the third night, her phone buzzed like a siren. I was lying just a few feet away, pretending to sleep, when I saw her reach for her pillow and grab her phone. Her fingers hesitated for a second, then she unlocked it and started typing. I read the message over her shoulder. "Tonight's the night. I can't wait to see you again." The words hit me like a punch to the gut. I waited a beat, then sent a quick reply from the anonymous email. "I know what you're doing. Stop before it's too late." I didn't want to blow my cover just yet, but I needed her to see that I was watching. Her eyes widened when she saw the message pop up on her screen. She froze, her face draining of color. "What? Who is this?" she whispered aloud, voice trembling. I kept quiet, watching her panic rise. She quickly deleted the message, but I'd already taken a screenshot. It was all there, proof she'd been caught, right in her own pocket. I knew she'd try to cover her tracks, but I planned to make sure she couldn't. Over the next few days, I kept up the charade, sending her little hints, cryptic messages that made her more paranoid. I wanted her to think she was losing control. Meanwhile, I lined up everything else: the evidence, the plan, my next move. I had her backed into a corner and I was ready to strike. One night I sent her a message that read, "We need to talk, it's serious." I knew she'd be nervous, maybe try to reach out to her lover, but I was prepared for that. I wanted her to feel the pressure, the paranoia, the fear of losing everything she cared about. She called me that same night, voice shaky as hell. "Why are you doing this?" she asked, practically begging. "Because I want you to understand what you've thrown away," I shot back. "And trust me, I've got more than enough to make you regret it." She was crying then, begging for a chance, saying she'd fix everything. I just listened, knowing that I'd already made my move. The pieces were in place, and I was about to turn the game in my favor. That night, I stayed silent as she kept pleading on the phone, my chest tight with anger and a strange sense of satisfaction. I knew I was about to give her a taste of her own medicine. It wasn't about destroying her entirely, yet. It was about making her realize she'd lost her grip, and I'd be the one to make her feel it. I looked out the window at the dark, starless sky, feeling the weight of what was coming. It was more than revenge now, it was justice for how she'd betrayed me. I was ready to make her see what she'd sacrificed. Just a little more patience, then I'd execute the final part. The waiting was the worst part. Every time my phone buzzed, my stomach twisted, hoping it was her trying to reach out, begging for forgiveness. But I knew better than to take her bait too soon. Instead, I kept my head clear, lining up everything I needed for the final act. I wanted her to think she still had control, that she could somehow fix this mess with a plea or a sorry. That's why I played it cool. In the meantime, I kept inspecting her phone, looking for any signs of her trying to hide more than I already knew. I found a second, secret app she'd installed, an encrypted chat service. Of course, she thought she was smarter than me. She'd been talking to him on that, probably planning to meet up again. I took screenshots, saved everything. This was the proof I needed to make sure she couldn't deny her actions. One evening, I decided it was time. I set up a meeting with her, an honest-to-God confrontation. I told her I had something important to discuss, that I wanted her to meet me at a nearby coffee shop. She was nervous, obvious in her trembling hands and the way she kept checking her phone. I could see her trying to stay composed, but her eyes kept darting around, searching for a way out. When she arrived, I looked her straight in the eye. "We need to talk," I said, voice steady but calm. "You've been lying all along. I've seen the messages, the calls, the secret apps. I know everything, and I want to know why." She looked down at her hands, voice barely a whisper. "I made a mistake," she said. "I was stupid. I didn't think it would go this far." Her eyes glistened with tears, but I wasn't moved. I was already planning what I'd do next. "I don't want to hear your excuses," I told her. "You betrayed everything, our vows, our trust. And I'm not going to let you just walk away from this. I've made plans to show you what losing me really means." Her eyes widened. "What are you talking about?" "You're not getting away without paying," I said, feeling a strange, cold satisfaction. "This isn't about revenge anymore. It's about making you understand the cost of your actions." I handed her a sealed envelope. "Inside, you'll find everything, the proof, the evidence, the plan. And after this, I want you to think hard about whether you want to keep going down this road." She looked at it, trembling. "Please, don't do this." She begged. "Oh, I already have," I said, "and it's only just beginning." I stood up, took her face gently in my hands, and looked into her eyes. "You lost me. I hope you understand that now. This isn't about revenge anymore, it's about justice." As I walked away, I felt the weight lift. I'd done everything I could. Now it was her turn to face the consequences. I left her sitting there, clutching the envelope, her face a mixture of fear and regret. I knew that from this moment on, nothing would be the same. I'd armed myself with the truth, proof she couldn't deny, and I was ready to see her face the fallout. The next step was clear. I was going to make her see what she'd done, and then I would walk away for good. No more second chances, no more lies. Just a clean break from a broken past. I had my plan, and I was ready to execute it. The day I decided to finalize, everything felt surreal. I woke up with a strange sense of calm, knowing I had all the proof I needed, and the final move was within reach. I went to the courthouse first thing in the morning, prepared to file for divorce. It was a clean, straightforward process. No drama, no shouting, just the cold reality of ending what was no longer salvageable. I handed over the papers, signed my name, and felt a weight lift from my shoulders as the clerk handed me the official documents. But I wasn't done yet. I had one last thing to do, something that would leave her with no doubt about her betrayal. I called her as I left the courthouse, told her I'd be home soon. When she answered, her voice was shaky, almost hopeful. "I have something for you," I said, voice even. "Meet me at the hotel lobby in an hour." She hesitated but agreed, probably knowing she couldn't run from this. When she arrived, I handed her the envelope I'd prepared, thick with every bit of evidence I'd gathered. Her hands trembled as she opened it, and her eyes darted across the pages, the screenshots, the call logs, proof of her lies, her secret messages, her betrayal. She looked up at me, tears streaming down her face. "Please." I never meant for it to go this far, she whispered. I looked her straight in the eye, feeling nothing but cold resolve. You lost me because you decided I wasn't enough. While we were supposed to be celebrating, you were planning your affair. Now I'm tired of pretending it didn't happen. That's why I'm done. She begged, pleaded for forgiveness, promised she'd change, but I'd heard enough. I reached into my pocket and pulled out the divorce papers. Sign these, I said calmly, and never try to contact me again. She took the pen, trembling, and signed her name. When she handed it back, I took it, folded it carefully, and placed it in my pocket. I knew she'd try to call me later to beg for a second chance, but I was already walking away. I'd made my decision. She wanted to betray me. She'd lost everything. As I stepped out of the hotel and into the cold air, I felt a strange mix of relief and emptiness. The betrayal had been raw, painful, but I'd taken back control. I'd chosen to end it on my own terms. The door was closed. The chapter was over. I took one last look back. At the hotel, the windows reflected a man who was battered but unbroken. I walked toward my car, feeling the rough texture of the keys in my hand. My mind was clear now, focused on rebuilding, on healing. And as I drove away, I knew that this was the end of one story and the beginning of another, one where I got to decide what comes next. Trust was broken, yes, but I'd learned a brutal lesson. Sometimes you have to tear everything down to truly move forward. And that's exactly what I was going to do. In the weeks that followed, I felt a strange sense of relief, mixed with a gnawing emptiness. The house felt too quiet, the silence almost deafening after all the chaos. I didn't rush into anything new. I needed time to heal, to process what had happened. Every time I saw her face in my mind's eye, I reminded myself of the truth I uncovered, her betrayal, her lies, the way she thought she could get away with it. That knowledge burned inside me, a reminder of what I'd lost, but also of what I'd gained, clarity. I threw myself into rebuilding my life. I cut ties with the people she'd brought into our world, unfollowed her on social media, and even changed my phone number. I didn't want her to have any way of reaching me. The process hurt, no doubt about it, but it was necessary. I refused to be someone's fallback, someone who was kept on the side while she chased after her impulses. I deserved better, something real, something honest. One evening, sitting alone in my apartment, I found myself reflecting on everything. I remembered the good times, the laughter, the quiet nights, the trust I once had. But I also knew I couldn't go back. That chapter was closed. I looked around at the empty space where she used to sit, and I realized that I'd finally freed myself from her grip. The betrayal had shattered my illusions, but it also made me stronger. In that moment, I made a promise to myself. No more secrets, no more lies. I'd learned what betrayal looked like firsthand. Moving forward, I'd be more cautious, more observant, but also more cautious about who I trusted. I knew that I couldn't control her choices, but I could control how I responded. Trust was fragile, and now I understood how quickly it could be broken. I'm not gonna lie, there's still a sting when I think about what she did, but I also know that I'm better off without her. Sometimes it takes losing everything to realize what you truly value. That lesson cost me a lot, but it also set me free. Now I'm focusing on myself. I started working out again, reconnecting with old friends, and even taking up new hobbies. I'm building a life where I don't have to wonder if I'm second best. I finally feel like I can breathe again, like I've reclaimed my peace. To anyone reading this who's going through something similar, trust your gut. Don't ignore the red flags. The truth always comes out, sooner or later. And when it does, don't be afraid to walk away, because no betrayal is worth losing yourself over. The pain may be raw, but so is the freedom that follows. And that's what I'll carry with me from this. The pain, the lessons, and the clear understanding that sometimes the only way to move forward is to cut ties completely and never look back.